So welcome to today's Greater Life CoffeeCast. And today, as we head into Friday and beyond, into the weekend, I'd like to leave you with something to think about that really could, if applied, create dramatic change for you across any of your four pillars. And the topic today is one that I've heard in a few different guises. I've spoken before about the book Killing Sacred Cows by Garrett Gunderson, and he talks about it as value investing. Daniel Priestley, who is another business thinker who I really rate, talks about the right tool for the job, and that's what I've called this CoffeeCast episode. And this is about choosing the tool, the piece of software, the item of clothing, whatever it might be, that is going to give you the result you want, rather than choosing the budget option that will kind of do it. Okay? And so a couple of examples recently of why I feel inclined to share this weekend as something to ponder. I've been in the process of refurbing my house, getting it ready to offer as a private adventure and retreat space for entrepreneurs over 50. If you're listening to this, consider coming and having what I'm calling a third phase adventure, which is that the third phase of life is life after 50, 55, 60, right? When the first phase of life is find yourself, find your place in the world. The second phase, of course, typically is being a parent. Or really diving into a career. And the third phase then is, okay, well, now that role of parent is no more, and perhaps I'm pondering what I truly want from my work, that I have maybe 30, 40, 20, 50 years left to live. What do I want the third phase of my life to be like? And I think it's why we're seeing a boom in over 50s travel and tourism. And from speaking to our community members and other business owners over 50, and indeed just people over 50 full stop, there is a desire for something meaningful, something more adventurous, where the travel itself is also a process of self-discovery. And that is what myself and another member of our community down here in Cornwall are really excited to begin offering, because you could travel the length and breadth of the earth and find nowhere as stunning and as powerful in terms of the landscape and the land and the opportunities it offers as Cornwall. Now, of course, New Zealand, all of that good stuff, fantastic, and I would stake that Cornwall will be on a par with those places if you know the right places. And that's what's really exciting, is having lived here now for 8 years and really been tapping into local knowledge and really been exploring myself, like finding these little nooks and crannies and spots that people just don't really know about or choose not to go because it takes some effort, but the effort is more than worth it. To be able to share these places and spaces as living containers of transformation is very exciting. So, I'm in the process of refurbing my house to be able to offer it as the space where people can come and be accommodated and catered for, where I'm looking forward to flexing my muscles. Little known fact, I was once an award-winning maitre d' in a restaurant. I had a pancake cafe that I used to run, and I was a BBC restaurateur expert. I was an expert maitre d' in a BBC pilot TV show called Recipe for Success. So there's a little blast from the past. So in the process of getting the house ready to accommodate and host these adventures for our community members and prospective community members, I've been cleaning down the back of the radiators pretty much for the first time. I actually didn't realise they were on brackets that you could lift off the wall. And yet it wasn't until my partner gave me this special nozzle that fits on my Hoover that I was then able to whiz through these radiators. They were pretty lagged up with old dog hair and, dust, all that sort of stuff. And the typical nozzle just wasn't quite cutting it. It just wasn't really getting in there and getting all of the detritus out the back of the radiator. As soon as I put this special nozzle in, this thin, it was it was just a joy to behold as like all of this like dust and lint just got sucked up. And it made the job very easy. And that was the thing. It really struck me. I was like, wow, I could have slaved away. I could have like sellotaped a toothbrush to the normal, Hoover nozzle and tried some kind of makeshift attempt. But had I known this earlier, had I even known that these appendages, these extra nozzles for my Hoover existed, I'd have invested in a heartbeat because of the amount of time it's already saved me, and not just the amount of time, the quality of the job that it's done. And over dinner a couple of nights ago, a friend of mine and I were discussing, he was discussing getting some new walking boots, and we were discussing whether he should go for the budget option or, spend a bit more. And of course, you may have heard Terry Pratchett's marvellous breaking down of kind of the impact of poverty, where he shares the example of, a poor person who can only afford £20 boots, and £20 boots will only last 2 years, whereas someone more wealthy could afford £50 boots, and £50 boots will last 10 years. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that the poor person over the course of that 10 years will have had to have spent double what the wealthy person spent on boots in order to keep in footwear. And whilst Terry Pratchett was making a different point, it really highlights what my friend and I were discussing about walking boots, is to get, actually, it's worth spending that little bit extra to get boots that are more comfortable, more waterproof, and more long-lasting. And so, for you, right now, where maybe are you pondering an investment? An investment in your health, an investment in your happiness in some way, an investment in your home, be that in the relationships you're cultivating or in actually beautifying and energizing your physical space? Where are you contemplating perhaps an investment in your business? And are you oscillating between the budget option and something that's a bit more expensive? And here's the thing, expensive doesn't necessarily always mean better. The key here is, like, what is the outcome you want? What is the job you want to be done by the thing you're investing in? And from that frame of reference, what is the best solution for the job you want done? Now, if perhaps it's a car to get you from A to B, okay, yeah, you could go down the knacker's yard and get a little, chop and shop banger for £100, and it might get you from A to B for a bit. You could go and get let's think about, a Golf, a Volkswagen Golf, or a Vauxhall Corsa, right? Probably a bit more reliable, right? Going to get you from A to B, but may not be the smoothest ride. And you could also invest in a Ferrari. Now, that may be a bit excessive, depending on your frame of reference. But can you see that each of those is going to impact the quality of your experience of getting from A to B? And whatever the thing you're pondering, whatever the investment that you might want to make, the other piece to bear in mind on this is the negative impact of things going wrong, right? If you were going to spend a little bit more to guarantee a lot more probability that things won't go wrong, what would that actually be worth? So, case in point, I remember a few years back I was traveling to Austria, and I could have flown into, I can't remember which Austrian city, and then got a taxi or hired a car to drive the 4 hours into the mountains where we were staying. As it was, and that was, I think back at the time that was maybe £100 more, right? As it was, I chose the more expensive, the cheaper option, which was to fly into somewhere in Holland and then drive 7 hours across country to where we were staying in Austria. Now, here's the kicker. While we were there, in the car, we then racked up, among a few of us, around, I think it was something crazy like £90 each in speeding fines. And we still had to drive the 7 hours there and back from the airport. So pretty much, let's say 10 hours extra of travel time, plus £90 worth of speeding fines. And suddenly, my budget option doesn't look so budget. right? So that's the piece here, is that the cheapest, but also perhaps the most attractive may not always, when you weigh the downside, may cease to be the most attractive or may cease to be the cheapest. Okay? Like if you, and you know, good example might be for your business, you might choose to invest in a free antivirus software, which might do most of the job. But the trouble is, if there was some hackers or criminals or whatever who managed to get around that free software that a paid version would have saved you from, well, can you see that suddenly you've lost your entire business versus forking out the extra 50, 100 quid on the paid antivirus software that would have saved your entire business? So when you weigh it up, yeah, there's an extra 100 quid of cost. But the downside cost is pretty much unfathomable, like you've lost your livelihood. And this is something that's only, I'd say in the last couple of years, it's begun creeping into my life as a operating principle of going, okay, yeah, great. What's the upside? Okay, fantastic. Nice upside. Okay, what's the downside? And is the cost of the downside something I'm willing to live with? Or is the cost of the downside, even if it may be an infinitesimal chance of it happening, is it life-alteringly challenging? And so we close out today with an invitation. And it may seem a strange one, but it's the invitation to love yourself enough to invest in the right tool. Because the extra time it might take for you to bodge a job with a cheaper, less effective tool, or the downside cost of that tool going wrong, and therefore the time and money cost to you, those things become unloving very quickly in terms of missed opportunities to spend time with loved ones, with family, working on the things in your business that can really move the needle forward, working on your health, building your happiness. The consequence of not investing in the right tool could genuinely be life-changing in all the worst ways. So, what are you pondering? And what decision do you need to make to invest in the right tool?